Okay, I have here. I'll just share quickly with all of you.
Hello.
Yeah. So everyone can actually follow this. Okay. So I hope everyone can see the screen. Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhu.
So we'll chant this Mangalacharan and then continue the session from here. So all of you can look at the screen and try to chant along with me. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnava Shri Rupam Sagrajata Bhagana Raghunathan Tam Sajivam Avadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Khanvitamsham He Sindho Deenabandhu Jagatpate
ఇప్పుడు జూమ్ మొత్తం వెళ్ళిపోయిందంట కదా
Radha Kanta Namostate Saptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Chakal Yascha Kripa Sindhu Devacham Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, can everyone mute themselves? There is so much background noise going on. Hare Krishna. I think we should be good, Prabhu. Prabhuji, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Did you join with Mataji's ID?
Prabhuji, Shankaranandas, Prabhuji, we can't hear you.
Okay, now I was also on mute because. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll chant the shloka and then start the session. Sorry, this is a little messed up. The font is a little messed up, but Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya to Anvayaditaratashartheshu Abhigyasvara Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yatsuraya Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatrati Sargom Visham Amna Svena Sada Nirastakuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. Translation. O my Lord Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is absolute truth, the primeval cause of all causes of creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representation of water seen in fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes temporarily manifested by the reactions of three modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Okay. So, today we will be discussing the second part. Anvayat itaratascha arteshu abhigya. So, okay. Just a quick question now. Krishna, are we recording this session?
Yes, Prabhuji, we are recording this.
Okay, perfect. So, Anvayat itaratascha arteshu abhigya. Anvayad itarastascha artheshu abhigya means that the Supreme Lord, he is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestation. Anvayad means directly, itarata means indirectly, cha means and, artheshu means purpose, and abhigya means fully cognizant. So the Supreme Lord is actually fully conscious of all the manifestations, not only this material creation where we live in, but all the manifestations, which are even beyond our, perception or reach. So he is conscious of everything and everyone in two ways, directly and indirectly. So let's try to understand what it means. So the Supreme Lord is indirectly cognizant of everything. Now, what is the meaning of cognizant? Cognizant means to be fully aware of the functionality, the purpose, the existence. So the Supreme Lord is indirectly cognizant of this creation. So this universe is compared to a big organization, like a big company, and just like in company, we have different department heads. But then there is one owner, one CEO of the organization. So similarly, this universe can be compared with the big organization, and all the demigods, they are like the department heads. For example, Indra is department head for rains. Lakshmi is the department head for wealth. Saraswati is the department head for learning. Surya is the department head for lighting or illuminating the whole creation. So in this way, different demigods, they are actually the heads of the different departments. But the owner is the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. So he is indirectly cognizant of the affairs of the universe through the different department heads who act as his servants to carry out the affairs of the management of the whole universal affair. So if Krishna wants to know the karma of all the living entities, he will approach the Yamaraj. Yamaraj can give him all the reports of each and every living entity's karma. Or, just like, we may or may not be aware what is happening. Say, for example, in our own town, whole city. Many of you are in Richmond. So you may not know what is happening in each and every home in Richmond. But the Devas, they can be fully cognizant. The sunlight, because you have sunlight coming in your home, or suppose moonlight coming in your home, or the wind is actually flowing everywhere. So in this way, there are different kinds of witnesses. In the daytime, there is sun. In the nighttime, there is moon. Then there is Vayu, or what do you call the god of winds. He can be present everywhere because we breathe. Without breathing, we cannot even live. So Vayu is actually what do you call present everywhere, and he's fully cognizant also of all of us. What is happening within our mind, he can know. What activities we perform, can know. So there are 10 different witnesses who witness our activities day and night. And everything is getting recorded. We may think, oh, nobody watched me doing something. So law and order cannot punish me because there is no proof of it. But each and every activity, including our thoughts, what we think in the mind, everything gets recorded by the universal administrators. Okay. So in this way, Krishna is actually fully cognizant through these administrative heads. But Krishna is indirectly cognizant. He is also directly cognizant of what is happening in each and every part of the creation. Now, say for example, these are 10 witnesses: sun, moon, Agni, Vayu, Varuna. They are the different demigods who know our activities. But they also perform some activities. Who takes note of their activities? Somebody has to be cognizant of their activities, their thought process as well. So Krishna is also directly cognizant. He doesn't necessarily depend upon all these demigods. This is explained in the Shirashvata Upanishad. Samane vrikshe purusho nimagna. So, samane vrikshe, this body is compared to a vriksha. So, the Upanishad says that there are two birds sitting on the same tree. So, although the two birds are sitting on the same tree, the one bird is eating. He is fully engrossed in eating the different fruits of the tree. And because he is so eager to enjoy or relish the fruits of the tree, he is always in anxiety and moroseness as the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. But is always looking for where I can find the fruits. And even if sometime he bites the fruit, some fruits are sweet, some fruits are bitter. Doesn't get always a sweet fruit. So there is always anxiety for the bird who is engrossed in eating. But on the same tree there is another bird who is simply sitting and witnessing the activities of this bird who is fully engrossed in trying to enjoy. So Krishna as Paramatma is the witnessing bird, living entity who is trying to enjoy through this body is the bird who is engrossed in enjoying. So when it says, but if some way or other, this bird who is fully engrossed in trying to enjoy the fruits of the body or this tree turns his face to his friend, who is actually the Supreme Lord, Paramatma, and begins to understand his glories. At once, all his sufferings are terminated. The bird becomes completely free from all the sufferings. So, in this way, Krishna is directly cognizant. This is also explained in Brahma Samhita. Ekopyaso rachayitum jagadanda koti yad shaktirasti jagadanda chayayadanta andantarasta paramani chayantarastam govindamaham bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead, Govinda, who by one of his plenary portions enters into the existence of every universe, every particle of the atoms, and thus unlimitedly manifests his infinite energies all over the material creation. So, in this way, actually, Krishna is personally present in each and every atom as Paramatma, as Vishnu. This is actually a very wonderful philosophical truth that gives assurance to the devotees. A person who practices Krishna consciousness is called a devotee, and such a practitioner is given assurance by this statement that we are reading today from Bhagavatam. Anvayad tatascha artheshu abhigya. That the Supreme Lord is directly and indirectly fully cognizant. So because the Supreme Lord is directly cognizant and is personally present as Paramatma in everyone's heart and everyone, in each and every atom of the creation, therefore, he has complete control over everything. So Krishna is present in each and every living entity's heart as Paramatma, but he's not only present in the heart as Paramatma, but this body that is composed of different minute particles, which we call the atom, he's present in each and every atom as well. And not only is present in each and every atom, he's present even in between the space between the two atoms. Very, very significant. Since Krishna is present in each and every atom, and he's also present in between the atoms, nothing is outside of the control of Krishna. Because Krishna is personally present in each and every atom, that's how he controls everything. Everything in the matter, and he controls every living entity as well. What will move, in which direction it will move, when, how, everything is directed by Paramatma. who's situated in each and every atoms. So even if sometime, this doubt arises, sometimes people they say, oh, we have been worshipping this deva, like somebody will say, we have been worshipping Surya Dev in our family for generations. Now if I start worshipping Krishna and don't worship Surya Dev, will not he be angry? First of all, devas, all the demigods, they don't get angry when a person becomes Krishna devotee, because all of them, all the devas, including Mahadeva, Lord Shiva, they are all devotees of Krishna. Therefore, you'll see, even Lord Shiva is always sitting in meditation, wrapped in meditation. Whom is meditating upon? You don't find Krishna ever sitting in meditation. You see always Krishna is playing on the flute, enjoying. In fact, one of the person who came from Germany to visit India many, many years ago, he was a disciple of Bhakti Thakur. So he was just a foreigner. He came from Germany to visit India. And after visiting many, many temples and many places in India, he came to Gaudiya Math, to Bhakti Thakur's ashram. And there he actually told Bhakti Thakur that I have traveled so many places in India. After visiting so many temples, I concluded one thing, that Krishna is actually God. So Bhakti Thakur said, well, what makes you think that Krishna is God? And he said, wherever I went, I saw all the deities they are engaged in doing something. For example, Lord Shiva is meditating. Durga is having all the weapons in the hand trying to kill the different demons. Everybody is busy in doing something. But Krishna is the only one whom I saw playing on the flute. That means simply enjoying. And God means he has to be enjoyed. He shouldn't be having anything to do, any duty to perform. So, in this way he concluded that actually Krishna is God. And Bhakti Thakur was very pleased hearing his conclusion. So, Krishna actually is the Supreme Lord. He has no duty to perform. But as Paramatma, he is actually present in each and every living entity's heart. So if sometime a person thinks, oh, if I start worshipping Krishna, then other devas may become unhappy. No, they don't become unhappy. They become actually very happy because they themselves are devotees of Krishna. And because they are themselves devotees of Krishna, they naturally become happy with such a person who takes to the process of becoming Krishna conscious. And even if sometime it may happen, apparently, that some deva is unhappy, still one has no need to be fearful, because even the demigod's body is made up of atoms. Even the demigod's heart, there is Paramatma. Krishna is there. Even if the demigod does become angry with some living entity, still a sadhaka, a practitioner of Krishna consciousness, has nothing to be afraid of. Because without sanction of Krishna, nothing can happen. So in this way, Krishna has complete control over everything. Now, everything in all of creations known to Krishna. So not only Krishna, even his devotees by grace of Krishna can know everything. Now, this is actually very, very interesting. Krishna is fully cognizant of everything. But sometimes even devotees of Krishna become aware of everything by the mercy of Krishna. We have the example of this in Srimad Bhagavatam. the 10th canto. So there is the one chapter in Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto where Narad Muni comes to Vrindavan. When Krishna was performing his pastimes in Vrindavan, Narad Muni comes there. And he comes to see Krishna in Vrindavan after Krishna had killed Keshi demon. You know? So he's having conversation with Krishna that, my dear Krishna, it is so wonderful that you have appeared in this world to kill these demons, and you have killed so many demons already. You have killed Putana, you have killed Aghasur, Bakasur, Keshi, and so many other demons you have killed. Now that you will leave Vrindavan and you will go to Mathura. Krishna is still living in Vrindavan, but Narada is describing what Krishna is going to do now. Now, Krishna is not bound by anyone's law or anyone's wish to do something. But Narada Muni knows what Krishna is going to do because he's a great devotee. And Krishna blesses him to know. So Narada Muni knows what Krishna is going to do. So he said, my dear Lord, I'll see soon now you will be leaving Vrindavan and going to Mathura. And after going to Mathura, you will be actually after going to Mathura, you will be killing Kuvalya Pida, the elephant. You will be killing the wrestlers like Chanur, Mushchik, Shal, Toshal, and Kuta. After that, you will kill Kamsa. You will kill the brothers of Kamsa. And then he describes what activities Krishna will perform. He said, my dear Lord, then you will defeat Jarasandha. And then you will construct a fort in Dwarka. In the midst of this ocean, you will create a city of Dwarka. And then you will fight with so many different demons. You will kill Kaliyaman, you will kill, you will kill Kaliyaman, you will kill who was the different demons? You will defeat, Jarasandha many times. You will defeat Vanasura. You will kill the Bhaumasura. So in this way, he describes what activities Krishna will perform after leaving Vrindavan and going to Mathura and then constructing the fort of Dwarka. He says, I'll see you getting married to Rukmini and so many other queens. After killing to Bhaumasura, you will marry 16,000 queens. The princes, you will get married to them. So in this way, Narada Muni already knows in beforehand only what Krishna is going to do. So even by the mercy of Krishna, his devotees become cognizant. Because in the spiritual world, there is no Paramatma. Paramatma feature is there in this world. In the material world, we have this Paramatma feature of Krishna. But in the spiritual world, Krishna does not reside in the hearts of his devotees as Paramatma. There, the devotee's heart is automatically, always filled with the remembrance of Krishna. So they directly know everything. And Krishna also directly knows everything in the spiritual world about the devotees, what the devotees desire. He doesn't need to be Paramatma in their heart. So devotees know Krishna's heart and Krishna knows devotees' heart. And this we should also understand that Krishna is not dependent on any material arrangement to know everything. Oh, in the spiritual world, he is not there as Paramatma, so how does he know everything? God means Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shunyate. Swabhaviti Dhyana Balakriyacha. They said that Para means the supreme. Parasya Shaktir. The Shakti, the energies of the Supreme are innumerable. Vividhaiva Shunyate. He has innumerable energy. And by the dint of those energies, to achieve anything is very natural for Krishna. Swabhaviki. Svabhavaki means it's so natural for Krishna to attain anything or achieve anything he wants to, because he has innumerable energies. So in this way, Krishna is actually directly and indirectly cognizant of this creation. But sometime when Krishna comes to this world to perform the pastimes, he plays the role as if he doesn't know anything. And he actually glorifies his devotees as if they know everything. They know better than him. Since tomorrow is Ram Navami, you can take a graphic example of this from Ramayana. When Ravana kidnapped the Sita, actually before even Ravana kidnapped Sita, when Marich came, Marich, the Nishachar, one of the associates of Ravana, he came in the disguise of a deer, a golden deer. And he attracted the heart of Sita. Now it's that Sita, because Sita is not an ordinary personality. She's not an ordinary woman. She's the energy of the Supreme Lord. She's also one of the great Vaishnavas, because she's none other than Lakshmi. Lakshmi is the Vaishnavi. So, she is a great devotee. How is it that she doesn't know that here the demon who has come in the form of golden deer? It's not that she doesn't know. She knows that this is a demon and he has come in the form of a golden deer. See, there's an Adhyatmik Ramayana where there's Lord Shiva is narrating the whole Ramayana to Mother Parvati. So, before Marich came, or before even Ravana or Marich, they came to allure Lord Ramachandra and Sita. There's a conversation between Lord Ram and Sita in Adhyatma Ramayana. So Lord Shiva is describing this in Parvati. This is part of Purana. So if Lord is narrating to Mother Parvati that before Ravana or Marich came, Lord Ramchandra told Sita Devi that now Ravana is going to come. So you should reside in the abode of Agni and let me have a Maya Sita here who Ravana will be bewildered by and will kidnap. And that will become an excuse for me to go and destroy Ravana, who has been such a source of pain for the entire creation. So that time actually Mother Sita, Agni Dev came to receive Mother Sita and he took Mother Sita with him, because Mother Sita is worshipful for him as well. He's the great devotee of Lord Ram. So he took Mother Sita with him, respectfully gave her a residence in his own abode, and Maya Sita was placed in the ashram of Lord Ramachandra by the arrangement of Lord Ram. So when Marich came, Maya Sita acted as if she is bewildered. And Lord Ramachandra acted as if he doesn't know that Marich is a demon. Because Lord Ramachandra was playing the role of a Maya Manushya. He appeared to be an ordinary human being for the sake of performing pastimes. And of course, Marich came and Lord Ramachandra chased him, thinking him to be a deer. And when Marich took Lord Ramachandra for a very, very long distance away from the ashram, and Lord Ramachandra left Sita in the care of Lakshman. He told Lakshman not to leave Sita alone. He strictly instructed him. And he went behind the Marich and finally killed the Marich And when Marich, made the sound resembling Lord Ramchandra's sound, Ha Lakshman, Ha Sita, please protect me. Lakshman, who is none other than the Supreme Lord, he's Baladev. He understood this is not the voice of my brother Ram. This is some demon. And it's not, Mother Sita would have not understood this. Of course, so the Maya Sita, but this Maya Sita was also a great Vaishnavi. But because this whole pastime was mainly to create a scene where Lord Ramachandra could have an excuse to kill Ram. Therefore, Mother Sita appeared to be bewildered. This is actually a very significant lesson. Mother Sita appeared to be bewildered and she chastised Lakshman to go away, to protect Ram. In the meantime, Ravana comes and kidnaps Sita. And once Sita is kidnapped, Lord Ramachandra, there are almost 10-11 chapters in Valmiki Ramayana where Lord Ramachandra is bewildered and asking everyone. And the forest, there are not many people. He's asking the animals. He's asking the trees. He's asking the creepers, have you seen Mother Sita? Not Mother Sita. He's asking his wife, have you seen Sita? So in this way, Ramachandra appears to be bewildered by the loss of Mother Sita. And they're fully cognizant. He's controller of everything. In those chapters, Lord Ramchandra appears to be completely bewildered and lost. In fact, Lakshman is the one who is trying to pacify him. So Srila Goswami gives a beautiful understanding of this entire episode. He says, Lord Ramchandra wanted to teach a lesson to the people of this world. What lesson he wanted to teach? That if a person is too much attached to family, to wife and all the paraphernalia of the family, such a person will simply suffer in this world. Where suffering is inevitable for such a person. He wanted to teach many lessons through that pastime. This was one of the most significant lessons. A person is attached to family, a person is attached to especially his wife, will suffer immensely. In this way, Lord Ramchandra, although he is fully cognizant, he was playing the role of Maya Manushya and he played the role as if he was not at all cognizant or aware of the whereabouts of Mother Sita. And then he actually plays the role of an ordinary human being, taking the help of monkeys to find Mother Sita. And then even to defeat Ravana, to construct a bridge to Lanka and then going to Lanka and fighting with Ravana and destroying Ravana and his army. Lord Ramchandra took the help of monkeys, the Vanar Sena. It appears that Lord Ramchandra is so much. He's dependent on the monkeys. He's dependent on the help from Mother to even find Mother Sita, retrieve Mother Sita from the imprisonment of Ravana. But actually, these are all considered Leela, pastimes of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord actually is fully cognizant. There's a beautiful instance of this in Puranas. I believe in Shiv Purana. This comes in probably Shiv Purana. Mother Sati, when she was married to Lord Shiva, this Lord Ramachandra was performing pastimes that time on the earth. And Lord Ramachandra was bewildered after Mother Sita was lost. He was crying, weeping, lamenting of the loss of Mother Sita. And as we discussed, he was even asking the animals, he's asking the trees and creepers about the Sita's whereabouts. So when Sati sees this, she becomes bewildered by the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra. And she sees her husband, who's exalted Lord Shiva, he's offering obeisances to Lord Krishna, Lord Ramachandra like this. My dear Lord, I offer my obeisances to this wonderful pastimes of yours. So Sati started thinking, my husband, who's a great Lord Shiva, he's offering obeisances to this human being who's lamenting for his wife. So bitterly he's lamenting for his wife. Now see, if somebody's wife was lost in today's day and age, the person will probably go to police and report. But such a person will not go and ask the neighbors, have you seen my wife? He'll not go to, ask the whole, neighborhood, or he will not go, definitely not go to trees and creepers asking, have you seen my wife? Here Lord Ramchandra is behaving like a madman. So Mother Sati, she got bewildered. She thought maybe my husband is confused. He doesn't know. He's taking this ordinary human being to be the Supreme Lord. She said, my dear husband, oh great Lord, you're offering pranam to this ordinary human being. He appears to be so bewildered with the loss of his wife. Lord Shiva, he told Mother Sati, don't think him to be an ordinary human being. Even though he appears to be bewildered, he is the fully cognizant Supreme Lord. Sati couldn't believe it. So she decided to test Lord Ramachandra. And Lord Shiva understood her heart. He said, don't try to test Lord Ram. He instructed her. But still, she couldn't resist. So she actually took the form of Sita and came in the presence of Lord Ramachandra and Lakshman in the forest. As soon as she approached Lord Ramachandra in the form of Sita, Lord Ramachandra immediately offered pranams to Mother Sati. And Mother Sati, who was in the form of the disguise of Sita, she said, my Lord, what's happened to you? Why you are offering pranams to me? And Lord Ramachandra became very grave and he said, I, the son of Maharaj Dashrath, descendants of Raghukul, offer my pranams to Mother Sati, the wife of Lord Shiva. But why you are alone here? I don't see the Lord Mahadev. How come you are alone here? And Mother Sati became very much ashamed. One moment before she's seeing Lord Ramchandra weeping and crying for Mother Sita. And when she takes the form of Sita, Lord Ramchandra becomes grave. Forgets about all. She didn't see any crying or lamentation on his face. On his demeanor. So in this way, when the Lord performs his pastime to be bewildered or to be looking like an ordinary person, that even puts demigods into bewilderment. Even the great personalities like Mother Sati, and even sometimes Lord Shiva becomes bewildered. What to speak of other demigods? So the Lord's pastimes are so wonderful that it bewilders even the greatest of all the devas. But the fact we understand from this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam is that the Supreme Lord is fully cognizant. Under all circumstances, He is fully cognizant of everything about this creation, everyone within this creation, and even beyond this creation. He is fully cognizant. I think we'll stop here. If anyone has any questions, you may ask. Hare Krishna. If you have any questions, you may ask. You can unmute yourself and make sure we can unmute everyone. I don't know who wants to.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, small doubt. Can you please explain me again, Mother Parvati in the form of Sita, why she came to Lord Sri Rama?
Okay, it was not Mother Parvati, it was Mother Sati, the daughter of Dakshina. She came to test because she was not convinced by the statement of Lord Shiva that this person who is so lamenting for his wife, at the loss of his wife, he's lamenting, he's practically gone like a madman. He's asking the trees, he's asking creepers, he's asking animals in the forest about his wife. He looks insane. How he can be Supreme Lord? So, this way Mother Sati was actually bewildered seeing the fasting of Lord Rama. Therefore, she came to test. Though, one thing the Vedas proclaim that wherever you see Lord Shiva folding hands and offering pranam, you should know that whom he is offering pranam must be Vishnu or Krishna. Because Lord Shiva does not offer pranam to anyone other than Krishna. If he's offering pranam, that must be Krishna. That's why you see Daksha Prajapati's yajna, Lord Shiva did not offer any respects to Daksha. Daksha is a living entity. He's a child of Lord Shiva. If a living entity is born in this creation, the child of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is like a father to all the living entities. Mother Parvati is the mother. So father offering obeisance to his own child, even though the child is playing the role of his father-in-law. The child will become, burdened with sinful reactions. Lord Shiva, just to protect Daksha, did not offer obeisances to him. The Lord Shiva offers obeisances only to Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. So Satish thought, maybe my husband has gone crazy. He's offering obeisances to ordinary human beings. There was actually offense on the part of Mother Sati. She thought her husband was unaware.
Thanks, Prabhuji.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else has any other question? Okay. Somebody asked, who are the 10 witnesses? The 10 witnesses are, I'll try to collect everyone, is Yama, Agni, Vayu, Varuna, Surya, Chandrama, 7. So 8th one. There are total 10 witnesses, the presiding deities of directions. So they are called 10 witnesses. They are the one who keep note of every living entity's actions. So for example, Prabhupada explains, the daytime sunlight, wherever sunlight reaches, So even if sun is not coming directly in your home, the sunlight is coming inside your home. The sun is taking note of your activities. Similarly, wherever the moonlight reaches, the moon is taking note of your activities. Wherever the air flows, wherever the wind is there, you is taking note of those activities. So in this way, there are 10 different witnesses. Any other questions anyone has? Okay, if no more question, then we can stop here. Thank you very much, everyone. Stop here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Very good, Madhuri.
So, Prabhuji, I was on the mute and I'm asking the questions. So the 10 witnesses, you mentioned 6, Prabhuji. One is Yama. What is the second one?
Yama,
Sun.
Agni, Vayu,
What?
Varuna.
Agni. Okay.
Agni, Vayu, Varuna, Sun,
Yeah.
Moon, and,
Bhumi.
You,
yeah, Bhumi, right.
7.
7. So I'm not able to recollect more. There are 10 witnesses.
So, Prabhuji, one more question, like about the 2 birds on a tree. One is our soul, other one is super soul. So the super soul always watches. There is no kind of influence, Prabhuji, at all.
The super soul is, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Upadrashta Anumanta Bharta Bhakta Maheshwara. Paramatma or super soul has only 2 functions. He is Upadrashta. Upadrashta means overseer. He sees what a living entity is doing. And Anumanta, he gives permission to do something. So I desire to do something very badly. If my karma is there, Paramatma gives sanction. Okay, you do like this. He gives sanction. Upadrashta Anumanta. So he is witness and he is a sanctioner. Until he gives sanction, nobody can do anything.
So if karma does not favor, then there is no...
Then Paramatma will not sanction.
Okay.
And even if karma does not permit, if Paramatma sanctions, the person is actually able to
do.
achieve or do whatever he wants to do.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Maybe we should do, increase the time, Prabhuji. You just started in it's over.
Now you will have tomorrow longer. Ramayana.
Yes, Prabhuji. I'll do that.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare
At what
Krishna.
time you will keep, Prabhuji? Tomorrow?
Tomorrow, Mataji, it will be 3:30, I believe, in the afternoon. Am I right, Mataji?
Yeah, 6:30 for Eastern time means it's 3:30 for West Coast, Mataji.
Yeah, it will be
What
3:30.
about Pacific? I'm in California time.
It will be 3:30, Mataji. 3:30 afternoon.
Oh, okay, 3:30. Okay.
Is this the same Zoom ID, Prabhuji? The same Zoom ID we can log in?
No, Mataji, I think the Zoom ID has not been yet. But Mataji, can you ask Divyanam Prabhu to send me the Zoom ID because I haven't received it yet.
Yes, Prabhuji. Or else I can forward it to you.
Yeah, please forward it to me.
Yes.
Forward it to me the email that he has sent to me.
Different Zoom ID.
It's not the same Zoom ID message.
Is it the same Zoom ID?
No, it's not the same.
Different ID, Prabhuji.
So please send me and I'll forward to everyone.
Yes, I'll forward it to you, Prabhuji.
Sure.
Prabhuji, how many days you are going to talk, Prabhuji? How many more days?
I think tomorrow will be for Ram Navami, but session is there on every Wednesday. And today, same time every Wednesday.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam to all the devotees.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Kalpadari.